Hey guys, tonight we're not just raiding your grandma's medicine cabinet. We're cracking open the actual Pandora's box that was the American pharmacy in the early 1900s. You ever looked at your bottle of Tylenol and thought, I wish this had more heroin in it? No? Well, the folks in 1902 sure did, because back then, the local drugstore wasn't just a place for cough drops and awkward greetings. It was an open-air chemical experiment run by a man named Chester, who thought side effects were just plot twists for your body. So before you drift off on a cloud of camphor vapor, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy this sort of thing. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and which home remedy your family still swears by, even though it's almost certainly illegal now. Bonus points if you grew up with whiskey on the gums. Now, dim those lights. Set your phone to Do Not Disturb, put on a fan for that comforting white noise, and get as horizontal as you legally can. Maybe tuck your feet in, just in case any patent medicine-era ghosts are lurking under the bed, trying to sell you some radioactive toothpaste. Let's pause for a moment. What was it like to stroll into a 1905 pharmacy? Did everyone just buy cocaine and call it a Tuesday? Why did cough syrup taste suspiciously like a cocktail? And who thought adding strychnine to tonic water was a health move? Was there any actual medicine? Or was it just a row of bottles with names like Dr. Pyme? Bumbles' invigorating elixir for tired gentlemen? Did anyone ever read the instructions? Or was dosing yourself just a game of pharmaceutical roulette? Could you survive a single cold with only what was behind the counter without accidentally inventing jazz? And now, congratulations, you've just woken up in 1903. The good news? The cure for your insomnia is literally morphine. The bad news? So is the cure for your child's cough. Good luck. Step through the swinging doors, and you're hit by a scent that's equal parts cherry cough drops, turpentine, and faint desperation. The counter is stacked high with glass bottles promising cures for everything from lumbago to existential dread, and the pharmacist is already measuring out powders with a spoon that's never been washed. Is this a place of healing, or just the chemical equivalent of a dice roll? Let's find out. You hover near the entrance, eyes adjusting to the dim gaslight and the rows of apothecary jars, each labeled in a looping script that's somehow both reassuring and ominous. Tincture of opium, bromo seltzer, Dr. Hamilton's celebrated worm syrup. There's a faded poster on the wall. A smiling woman clutching a bottle of something called Vitality Elixir, now with 30% more pep. Everyone in the room is ignoring the word pep. You're not sure if that's a good sign. A bell jingles behind you. Someone comes in from the street, hacking a cough that would terrify a Victorian orphan. No one looks up. The pharmacist, part wizard, part bartender, all moustache, barely glances away from his scales, which are coated in a thin film of white powder. You realize, with a gentle shudder, that in 1903 this is the safest place you can buy, both a healing tonic and a dangerous hallucinogen. Sometimes in the same bottle, you step closer to the counter, feeling the crunch of sawdust underfoot. A clever solution for spilled liquids, nervous feet, and the occasional fainting spell brought on by smelling salts gone wrong. The glass display glitters with amber bottles and mysterious tins. Iron bitters, beef wine, witch hazel, and a crate of effervescent headache powders. Everything promises to restore your vigor or renew your spirits, as if feeling slightly more awake is just a matter of chemistry and wishful thinking. The pharmacist offers you a smile. It's the kind of smile that says, I'm both a professional and a willing accomplice in your self-experimentation. He asks what ails you, as if there's a correct answer. You could say I have a cold, but you're not sure if you'll leave with a peppermint lozenge or a jar of cocaine tooth drops. Maybe both. For good measure, you notice the clientele. An anxious-looking mother rocks a baby who's clearly been up for 3 nights straight. She's clutching a bottle of soothing syrup so tightly the label is peeling off, likely because it's about 60% alcohol and 10% morphine. A hunched man in a bowler hat is deep in negotiation over the price of his favorite nervous tonic. In the corner, a very elderly woman is asking in a perfectly normal voice whether it's better to take her laudanum with or without her morning sherry. There are no wrong answers here, only consequences. You survey the rest of the shop. There's a soda fountain too, gleaming marble, sparkling glasses, a boy in a paper hat. It seems innocent enough until you realize the most popular syrup is Vin Mariani, a delightful blend of Bordeaux wine and pure cocaine. The pharmacist helpfully suggests it for tired businessmen and hysterical housewives. You nod, as if that explains everything about 1900s America. Every surface is covered in remedies. Some make you feel better. Some just make you feel weird. The room hums with the energy of people who are one dose away from enlightenment or a nap that lasts until Tuesday. You pick up a sample bottle of Dr. Baxter's Nerve Food, and it sloshes in your hand with the sound of a dozen ingredients that will never see a clinical trial. There's no warning label, just an instruction to use liberally, as needed. You wonder, as you watch a father buy an arsenic wafer for his teenage daughter's complexion, whether anyone here is actually getting better, or if you're all just passengers on a gently rolling train through the land of placebo and beyond. The pharmacist nods, sliding your purchase across the counter with the same confidence he uses to sell anything from cough syrup to radioactive face cream. You pocket your remedy, inhaling the ever-present perfume of menthol, hope, and mild panic. And as you step back out onto the bustling street, you realize something. The real cure in a 1900s pharmacy wasn't always in the bottle. Sometimes, it was just the comfort of believing you were doing something, anything, to make it through another day. Even if what you were really buying was just a little piece and a story to tell at dinner, preferably before the side effects set in. You squint at the hand-lettered sign, cocaine toothache drops, guaranteed to numb your troubles, and your teeth, and possibly your sense of self. In 1900, cocaine wasn't a controlled substance. It was Tuesday's best seller. Parents bought it for teething babies, and nobody seemed worried about side effects, unless spontaneous jazz hands counts. The world outside is smoky, horse-drawn, and allergic to subtlety. Inside the pharmacy, it's even wilder. The clerk sees you staring and gives you a knowing nod, the kind of approval reserved for people with a truly aching molar or an appetite for risk. On the counter, a tray of amber bottles, each hand labeled and stoppered, promises to take away your pain, your sorrow, and, if you aren't careful, your ability to feel anything at all. Let's talk ingredients. The main one? Pure, pharmaceutical-grade cocaine. Not a trace, not a homeopathic whisper, but honest to goodness might run for mere levels of cocaine. The instructions are simple. Apply a few drops to the gum, wait for the magic, and then try not to solve calculus problems at 3 a.m. This was pain relief as imagined by someone who thinks sleep is a government conspiracy. There's a mother here, desperately waving a bottle at the pharmacist, her toddler clinging to her skirt and sporting a suspiciously blissful smile. The toothache drops really work, she whispers, as if afraid someone might overhear and steal her supply. The pharmacist, unfazed, reminds her there's also a syrup, same secret ingredient, new flavor, just in case Junior develops a cough or a sudden passion for jazz improvisation. The display is packed with options. You could pick Dr. Tucker's cocaine tablets for headaches, or Metcalf's cocaine cough cure for chest colds. The labels are unashamedly cheerful. One features a cartoon baby gleefully clutching a bottle, possibly moments before redecorating the nursery ceiling with his bare hands. Every product claims to clear the mind, ease the nerves, and restore youthful vigor. If your idea of vigor is vacuuming the ceiling at midnight, you're in luck. You can't help but marvel at the sheer optimism. No one is reading the fine print. mostly because there isn't any. Side effects? You might get a tickle in the feet or unusual cheerfulness. If your heart starts tap dancing, it's just the medicine working its magic. Some doctors even recommend cocaine as a tonic for exhaustion and sadness. Feeling blue? Take 2 and run a marathon. Or start one. Either way, you won't be bored. Nearby, a nervous gentleman in a cravat is buying a second bottle for his delicate constitution. He leans in and confides, "Works wonders for public speaking." You believe him. His pupils are the size of nickels. The pharmacist offers him a complimentary lozenge for the nerves. This, too, contains cocaine, but with a hint of peppermint. There's always a peppermint. The logic of the age is simple. If it feels good, and your doctor advertises in the back of Popular Mechanics, it's probably medicine. Cocaine was sold by the ounce, measured out with the same little spoon that handled baking soda, aspirin, and whatever else needed portioning that day. The counter itself is coated with a fine white dust. And if you sneeze, half the town will get a contact high. You take a moment to consider, is anyone getting better or just louder? Children nap contentedly or stare, wide-eyed, at wallpaper patterns for hours. Coughs fade, but only because everyone is suddenly too chatty to notice them. Even the town dentist recommends a dab before pulling a tooth. No one asks questions. No one keeps records. If you're lucky, the only thing you lose is your cough. You thank the pharmacist, bottle in hand, marveling at the sheer, unchecked bravado of the era. As you leave, you catch the slogan again, guaranteed to numb your troubles, and realize it wasn't just the teeth they were numbing. Sometimes it was the whole century. Right next to the licorice sticks sits a bottle of Bayer heroin, marketed for coughs, colds, and restlessness. Got a fussy toddler at 3 a.m.? Don't worry, there's a syrup for that. Warning: side effects may include your kid sleeping through their own wedding. You pick up the bottle, squinting at the polite, hand-drawn label. The logo is comforting, somewhere between family-friendly and chemical curiosity. Beneath a golden script, a smiling child leans on a crescent moon, cradling a bottle of what is, without irony, pure heroin. The instructions are simple. For children, 1 teaspoon. For adults, 2. For especially restless children, see above and wish yourself luck. No prescription, no questions. No side eye from the pharmacist. If you can reach the counter, you can buy it. You glance around and realize you're not alone. An entire aisle is devoted to children's remedies, each more sleep-inducing than the last. Here's a bottle of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, a gentle blend of morphine and alcohol for the teething baby, who's also cutting molars and a few corners off their life expectancy. There's a jar of paregoric for infant bowel complaints. If you're under 5 and not at least a little sedated, you're probably not trying. The air itself feels slightly drowsy. There's an exhausted mother counting out pennies with one hand and rocking a red-faced toddler with the other. The pharmacist slides the heroin syrup across the counter with the kind of casual grace reserved for handing out peppermints. You watch as the mother pockets the bottle, her face etched with the kind of gratitude reserved for miracles, strong coffee, and sleep that doesn't involve farm animals or midnight fevers. Let's pause and marvel at the logic. In the 1900s, sleep was a luxury, children were loud, and modern earplugs hadn't been invented. So the solution, naturally, was a syrup strong enough to calm a circus and smooth out every tantrum into a gentle, uninterrupted nap. You wonder if parents even read the ingredients, or if they just trusted anything bottled and advertised by a man with a bow tie and a degree in hope. And, oh, the advertisements. Bayer ran full-page ads in popular magazines, each more reassuring than the last. Safe, gentle, effective, heroin for coughs and colds. There's a child grinning, hair brushed, cheeks rosy, as if he's just come from a particularly successful dream. The text promises a quiet night for mother, a restful night for child. As if heroin were the gentle hand of a Victorian nanny, not the reason Junior hasn't blinked since breakfast. You can almost hear the conversation at home. Little Tommy's up again? Give him a teaspoon and see if he doesn't sleep till Easter. What about the side effects? He hasn't had any in days, or thoughts, or movement. Modern parents have baby monitors. Here, you get a bottle, a prayer, and the world's most peaceful toddler. Of course, there are no warnings about addiction or long-term effects, unless you count may become unusually attached to nap time. There's no fine print. No one is worried about dependence. The pharmacist recommends it to everyone. Fussy children, coughing teens, overworked fathers, occasionally even the family dog. If it's breathing and making noise, there's a syrup for that. You start to notice the mood in the pharmacy is subdued. Not tranquil, exactly, just slower. The shelves are filled with bottles, promising rest, quiet, blissful repose. The room smells faintly of camphor, licorice, and something a little bit narcotic. Even the ticking clock on the wall seems a few beats behind. Before you leave, the pharmacist slides a peppermint across the counter, for after the medicine, just to freshen up. You step out, bottle in hand, marveling at a world where sleep was sold by the ounce and the cure for restlessness was a gentle drift into oblivion. As you walk away, the label catches your eye one last time. Heroin syrup for children. Sweet dreams guaranteed. In the 1900s, they really meant it. And if you're still awake after all that, well, there's always the laudanum. The 1900s solution to colic was Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, an over-the-counter cocktail of morphine and alcohol. Yes, you could buy it in bulk. No, you couldn't buy earplugs, but you probably wouldn't need them. The bottle sits proudly on the pharmacy shelf. Its label decorated with delicate Victorian flourishes, as if it were selling lace gloves or embroidery kits, not the kind of concoction that could make an entire household suspiciously quiet. You pick it up carefully, half expecting a soft lullaby to start playing from inside the glass. The directions are wonderfully vague. Give freely to soothe crying infants, freely, as if overdosing your baby is a matter of personal artistic expression. You turn the bottle in your hand. The syrup sloshes thickly, the color of molasses with ambitions. The pharmacist catches your eye and smiles with the confidence of a man who's sold this to 3 generations of new parents and has never once questioned the ethics of it. He gestures toward a pyramid of identical bottles, neatly stacked like he's prepping for an especially sleepy apocalypse. Popular item, he says. You bet it is. It's the 1900s equivalent of turning the white noise machine up to 11. There's a mother at the counter, listing her baby's symptoms. Fussiness, crying, refusing sleep, a general aura of chaos. The pharmacist nods gravely, then slides a bottle toward her like a poker player pushing in his final chip. She exhales with relief. It's clear she already knows the drill. She tucks the bottle into her bag with the efficiency of someone who hasn't slept since the Roosevelt administration. And here's the thing. Everyone knows what's in it. It's not a secret. It says it right on the label. Morphine. No fine print. No whispering. No raised eyebrows. Back then, the thinking process was simple. If a little alcohol helps adults relax, why not give infants the deluxe package? Modern pediatricians would have a cardiac event reading these instructions, but in the early 1900s, this was cutting-edge childcare. You wander into the children's corner of the pharmacy, which looks more like a tranquilizer aisle for the under-5 demographic. Paregoric, laudanum, chloroform liniments, they're all here, marketed with cartoon cherubs who look suspiciously drowsy. It's a museum of parental coping mechanisms before parenting books, baby monitors, or the phrase maybe try a warm bath first. Imagine being a parent in this era. The baby's screaming, The wind is howling through the walls. Your kerosene lamp is flickering ominously. And your only modern convenience is a rocking chair that squeaks with every attempt at comfort. If someone handed you a syrup that promised quiet, restful nights, you might not ask many questions either. You pick the bottle up again and give it a cautious sniff. The aroma is a blend of sweet syrup and something that reminds you of a very tired carnival worker. It's not unpleasant, but you can tell this isn't going to win any awards for subtlety. This syrup isn't here to negotiate with the baby, it's here to stage a full takeover. The pharmacy shelves tell the quiet story of a society deeply afraid of noise. Every parent you see has the same expression, that hollow, sleep-deprived look that says something must silence this tiny creature. And in the absence of pacifiers and parenting blogs, they reached for opium. One father walks past with a bottle tucked under each arm, like he's preparing to weather a storm. He gives you a nod that says, "Judge me if you want, but I'll be asleep by 9. You nod back. No judgment here. You leave the pharmacy, still holding the bottle, marveling at how something so small wielded such power. In the 1900s, bedtime wasn't just a routine, it was a chemical negotiation. And thanks to Mrs. Winslow, most babies didn't put up much of a fight. It's the original recipe, folks, cocaine and caffeine. Sold as a pick-me-up for busy businessmen and delicate ladies alike. Take a sip and feel your heart race, your mood soar, and your sense of dental hygiene quietly evaporate. You wander over to the pharmacy soda fountain, where marble counters gleam under a haze of cigar smoke and ambition. The soda jerk behind the bar wears a crisp paper hat and the faint expression of someone who's seen things. A man who knows that behind every innocent glass, there's a secret ingredient ready to punch your brain awake. He sets down a glass and pours a thick, bubbling stream of dark caramel liquid, ice clinking in a cheerful warning. This, you're assured, is the real thing. The recipe? A bold blend of coca leaf extract, cola nut, and a heroic dose of syrupy optimism. There's no shame in it either. Coca-Cola is advertised as a temperance drink, a wholesome alternative to the local saloon, best enjoyed with a slice of pie and a complete disregard for your central nervous system. The ads promise you'll be invigorated, refreshed, and ready for life's challenges, which, in 1902, probably meant hauling coal, arguing about tariffs, and surviving another winter with your in-laws. A row of men in stiff collars and pocket watches crowd the counter, each one knocking back his afternoon Coca-Cola with the grim focus of a Wall Street trader. Next to them, ladies in frilled hats and white gloves sip demurely, cheeks flushed, laughter growing just a little too loud. There's a jittery energy in the air. Everyone's heart is racing, but in the best possible way. The soda jerk, moving with the precision of a caffeinated hummingbird, asks if you'd like the usual or something a bit stronger, meaning a double shot of syrup and the kind of eye contact that lasts until sunrise. You take a sip. The taste is sharp, fizzy, and surprisingly earthy, with a sweetness that clings to your molars like a clingy X. For a brief, glorious moment, you feel like you could invent jazz or personally electrify the entire county. The effect is instantaneous. Energy thrums through your veins, your vision sharpens, and suddenly every problem seems solvable with a little elbow grease and a lot of sodium benzoate. Around you, the pharmacy starts to buzz. A mother hands her child a small glass. Coca-Cola is marketed for delicate children and the elderly alike. The kid downs it in a single gulp, eyes wide, smile wider, and promptly begins reciting the entire alphabet backwards. The old man in the corner grins toothlessly and declares he hasn't felt this alive since the Spanish-American War. He might be right. Of course, nobody worries about the coca in Coca-Cola. The company's advertisements say it enlivens the spirit and refreshes the body. And who could argue with that? There are even health claims. Coca-Cola as a tonic for headaches, fatigue, melancholy, and that tired feeling. If you're having a slow day, the solution isn't rest. It's another glass. The pharmacist, watching from behind the counter, gives you a knowing nod. Good for what ails you, he says, echoing the slogan on every wall, calendar, trolley ad, and painted barn in America. He wipes down a glass and, as an afterthought, offers you a handful of toothpicks. You'll need them. The sugar is already working to cement your teeth together. You set down your glass, pulse racing, ears ringing with the background chatter of a dozen over-caffeinated customers. In this era, before ingredient lists and nutrition labels, ignorance is not just bliss, it's part of the experience. You marvel at the sheer, unchecked joy of drinking a soda that's basically a stimulant smoothie. No guilt, no warnings, just the promise of feeling spectacular for at least 12 minutes. As you step away from the counter, you realize you're walking a little faster, smiling a little brighter, maybe ready to start a business, or, if the urge strikes, repaint your house. That's the magic of the original Coca-Cola. A bubbly elixir of optimism, speed, and the absolute absence of moderation. Enjoy the rush, because bedtime is definitely cancelled. Feeling a bit tired? Why not try a shot of strychnine-laced tonic water? It promised to invigorate, rejuvenate, and occasionally cause full-body spasms. If the cure didn't kill you, it definitely kept things lively. You linger by the pharmacy's display of tonics and elixirs, admiring the line of glinting bottles. Each one is labeled with a flourish, and the kind of unearned confidence that only comes from marketing a nerve poison as a breakfast beverage. Dr. Marvel's vitalizing tonic, with real strychnine, boasts the nearest label. The font as perky as your pulse will be in about 30 seconds. The pharmacist, always eager to help and never once fazed by the prospect of mild poisoning, offers you a small glass. The liquid inside shimmers with an unnatural clarity, impossibly clear, with a faint, almost noble bitterness on the nose. The promise? A gentle pick-me-up that's basically the chemical equivalent of being mugged by your own nervous system. Strychnine, for the uninitiated, is best known today as rat poison. In the early 1900s, it was the secret weapon for anyone feeling under the weather, overworked, or not quite ready to lose a staring contest with death. The thinking was simple. If you can barely get out of bed, maybe what you need is a quick electric jolt to your muscles and nerves. After all, what's more invigorating than involuntary twitching? You swirl the glass and take a hesitant sip. The flavor is sharp, medicinal, and tinged with the taste of danger. The first effect is a sudden sense of alertness, followed closely by the mild awareness that your calf muscles are starting to vibrate like a telegraph wire. The pharmacist leans in, reassuring, "That's how you know it's working. Just don't try to yawn." On the wall behind you, posters advertise strychnine tonics as a remedy for weakness, exhaustion, and general malaise. The instructions are vague, 1 spoonful as needed. But everyone in the shop knows the real instructions. Take exactly enough to feel alive, but not enough to mistake your neighbor for a snake and launch into a dance you'll never remember. Some call it a stimulant, others call it Russian roulette in a glass. Both are technically correct. The clientele is eclectic. One man in suspenders orders his second dose of the morning, hands trembling just slightly. "Great for the circulation," he says, eyes wide, jaw working like he's rehearsing for the national chewing championships. A local schoolteacher, pale and frazzled, takes a half dose and sighs with something between relief and existential terror. "It gives me pep," she says, "or at least it gives me something." Strychnine tonics aren't just for adults, either. The pharmacist offers smaller bottles for delicate children and nervous elderly. There's even a strychnine-infused lozenge for those on the go. "Perfect for church," the label says. You can't help but wonder if anyone's ever left the service in a full-body cramp. and called it a religious experience. Modern medicine would look at this shelf and call for an intervention. Back then, though, strychnine was a sign of progress, an exotic import from the far reaches of scientific optimism, sandwiched somewhere between the electroshock belt and the cocaine cough syrup. No one thought of side effects. You'll either feel younger or wish you'd written a will, the pharmacist says with a wink. You finish your glass, muscles tingling, heart pounding, the world just a little too sharp around the edges. If you feel invigorated, congratulations, the tonic has done its job. If you can still unclench your jaw, consider it a win. As you leave the pharmacy, you reflect on the lesson of the day. Sometimes, feeling truly alive comes with a risk, and, occasionally, a small chance of spontaneous river dancing. In the early 1900s, that was just called health. A solution of opium and alcohol in a fancy bottle, laudanum was the go-to for headaches, coughs, menstrual cramps, and existential dread. Side effect: 19th century poetry. You spot the laudanum display immediately. A parade of elegant glass vials. Their contents, the deep amber of Victorian wallpaper, the labels scripted in the sort of calligraphy that practically guarantees you're about to make either a breakthrough or a questionable life choice. On the shelf above, a little placard reads, "For all that ails you," and in 1902, that was everything. The pharmacist uncorks a sample, the sharp tang of spirits drifting up to mingle with a low, earthy sweetness. "Headaches?" he asks, as if you might have wandered in looking for a scone and simply lost your way, or something a little more existential, he winks. You're not sure if he's joking, but you do notice he keeps a bottle behind the counter with his name scratched into the glass. Laudanum is medicine, but it's also a ritual, a daily dose of escape, a velvet-lined exit from the aches and anxieties of a life that involves no central heating, 5 jobs, and at least one cousin living in your pantry. It's prescribed for nearly everything: toothaches, coughs, female complaints, and the mysterious, all-encompassing diagnosis of nervousness. There's a bottle in every parlor, a dash in every purse, and, if the dog is limping, a little in his supper as well. The directions are beautifully simple. Take as needed. The dosing glass is almost comically small, which makes sense when you consider that even a drop can loosen your grip on reality. There are no warnings about drowsiness, addiction, or seeing Victorian poets at the foot of your bed. Just the gentle suggestion that laudanum soothes body and mind, and soothe it does. One mother, clutching 3 squirming toddlers and a receipt for something called bone tonic, sighs as the pharmacist hands her a bottle. "For teething?" he asks. She just nods, too tired to invent another excuse. There's no judgment. Everyone in this pharmacy is one sleepless night away from a poetry reading. Laudanum is the great social leveler. It's sipped by socialites, laborers, doctors, and writers. Down the aisle, an anxious young man requests a dose for creative exhaustion. The pharmacist obliges with a knowing look. You get the sense he's heard every excuse in the book. Heartbreak, bronchitis, gloomy weather, boredom, sudden urges to write a novel about melancholy cows. Every bottle of laudanum is an unopened chapter of Victorian literature, just waiting for a long afternoon and a lack of supervision. Of course, there's no fine print about addiction. If your neighbors lost weight and started speaking in elaborate metaphors, no one bats an eye. Laudanum is, after all, endorsed by society's best and brightest. Doctors, poets, grandmothers, and, if you believe the rumors, the family cat. It's not uncommon to hear stories of the house pet who accidentally discovered the family stash and spent the afternoon contemplating infinity under the kitchen table. The atmosphere in the pharmacy is calm, but a little dreamy. Maybe it's the faint whiff of opium. Or maybe everyone's just had a very restful lunch. A middle-aged man requests a bottle for his nightly headaches. then immediately buys a second, just in case the first one's lonely. The pharmacist smiles, because who needs concern when you have plausible deniability? You leave the counter with a new appreciation for the power of Victorian medicine. In a world before Netflix, antacids, and therapy, laudanum was the universal balm. Pain, sorrow, cramps, creative block. Just pour a teaspoon and wait for the world to soften at the edges. The only real risk? Waking up tomorrow with a half-finished poem and no idea how your cat got into the pantry. If you can still walk straight after your first dose, congratulations. You're officially part of history's great, blurry, and mildly euphoric sleep experiment. Behold, the glowing elixirs, radium water and creams, advertised as vitality boosters, made you the literal light of the party and sometimes the afterlife. You step to the far end of the pharmacy, where the lighting is strangely radiant. Here, the shelves are lined with bottles and jars that actually emit a faint, ghostly glow. The effect is somewhere between an upscale spa and a haunted house for people who love science a little too much. In the early 1900s, radium wasn't a public health crisis. It was the latest and greatest miracle from the future, bottled and ready to sip. The star attraction is Radithor, a glass vial filled with radium-infused water, promising to cure fatigue, arthritis, and a lackluster personality. The label is all confidence and bold font, declaring perpetual energy in every drop. You lift a bottle and feel a tingle of anticipation, or is that just your hands going numb? The instructions are reassuring. Drink freely. Recommended by modern science. If you're wondering what modern science actually is, so is everyone else. Next to the Radithor, you spot the Radia face cream, a beauty balm that's positively luminous. It's guaranteed to restore your youthful glow, and by glow, they mean it literally. The jars look like they've been designed for use in a lighthouse. The pharmacist beams as he arranges them, proud, perhaps, that his products can be located even in a blackout. A woman in a stylish hat inspects a pot of Thoradia with interest. "Will this help with my wrinkles?" she asks. The pharmacist assures her that, yes, the radiant energy will revitalize her skin and quite possibly her reputation at Bridge Club. She leaves with 3 jars and a promise to return if she starts to sparkle. The appeal is irresistible. Radium, nature's restorer, posters shout from every corner, featuring healthy, smiling families with teeth bright enough to land planes. Water, toothpaste, hair tonics, chocolate bars, all enhanced with a little touch of radioactivity. It's not just medicine, it's a lifestyle. Why settle for ordinary, non-glowing water when you could be sipping on the stuff that powers scientific breakthroughs and, allegedly, immortality? Even the soda fountain has gotten in on the act. The clerk offers you a radium fizz, sparkling water with just a dash of radium, for pep and personality. He assures you the tingle on your tongue means it's working. You look around and see that no one in the room seems worried. In fact, a few customers look positively delighted, eyes shining in the low light. Or maybe that's just the radium. It's easy to get swept up in the glowing optimism. Everyone wants to feel younger, livelier, brighter, literally. The pharmacist sells radium bandages for aches, radium toothpaste for smiles that could guide ships at night, and even radium suppositories for, well, reasons no one wants to talk about at dinner. The warnings, if any, are buried beneath a tidal wave of testimonials. After 1 week of Radithor, I can chop wood all day and dance all night, says one satisfied customer who has not slept since Tuesday. My complexion is luminous, writes another, possibly from the afterlife. If you're worried about side effects, the pharmacist reassures you with a confident wave. Science is always discovering new miracles, he says. And what could be more miraculous than a healthy, radiant you? You leave the pharmacy with a bag full of optimism and an eerie sense that you'll never need a nightlight again. Outside, you notice your hands glowing faintly in the moonlight. Is it health, hope, or just an enthusiastic misunderstanding of radiation? Hard to say. But in 1904, there's no such thing as too much glow. Sleep tight and try not to light up the bed linens. Every so often, a mysterious wagon rolled into town, hawking snake oil liniment. Cure for all that ails you. And probably some things you didn't know could ail. Spoiler. Not a lot of actual snake, but plenty of questionable optimism. You hear the commotion before you see it. A clatter of wheels, a chorus of excited whispers, and, cutting through the morning air, a booming voice promising miracles in a bottle. The snake oil salesman is here. His wagon painted in wild colors and festooned with banners that flap with every boast. On the side, Dr. Horace Beam's celebrated snake oil liniment cures anything but death. It's a show, and you are tonight's lucky contestant. The townsfolk gather in a half circle as the salesman, dressed in a coat brighter than a circus tent, climbs atop his wagon and holds up a glinting bottle. Are you tired, H.E.? Suffering from rheumatism, melancholy, toothache, or an uncooperative neighbor, he bellows. Step right up. There's always an assistant, a random volunteer, who just happens to be the healthiest-looking person in 3 counties. She steps forward, winces theatrically, and applies a dab of liniment to her elbow. "Why, I feel better already," she exclaims, then demonstrates her miraculous recovery by dancing a short jig. You step closer, curiosity outweighing common sense. The air smells faintly of camphor and ambition. The table is loaded with bottles, each one promising to relieve pain, restore youth, and maybe teach your old dog new tricks. The recipe? A closely guarded secret. But if you read the fine print, and no one ever does, it's mostly mineral oil, a little hot pepper, some turpentine, and the absolute minimum amount of snake. If you're lucky, maybe a drop of actual rattlesnake oil. If the salesman could find any, people begin lining up, clutching their pennies and their wishful thinking. For every skeptic in the crowd, there's someone desperate for relief. Old men with sore backs, mothers with colicky babies, a local preacher who just wants a little peace. Everyone hopes for a miracle, even if they know, deep down, it's probably all show. The salesman moves through the crowd, pressing bottles into hands, extolling the virtues of his patented cure in a voice trained to cut through the din of county fairs and public auctions. The spectacle is half medicine, half theatre. If you ask the salesman about side effects, he laughs. The only side effect is disappointment when you run out. If you ask what it tastes like, he says, like hope and a dash of mystery. If you ask about results, he'll point to his smiling assistant, now juggling apples and doing squats. The real magic, you realize, isn't in the bottle, it's in the ritual. People come together, swap stories, compare ailments, and maybe, for a few hours, believe in something a little bit wild. The placebo effect gets a full parade, complete with brass band and confetti. Even the most skeptical leave with a smile, sometimes from the show, sometimes from the tingle of camphor and menthol on aching skin. You finally get your own bottle, the label promising to cure neuralgia, headaches, and female troubles, plus unexplained forebodings. You hand over a nickel, knowing you're probably buying more entertainment than medicine, but that's all right. Sometimes, the cure isn't in what's inside the bottle, but in the hope that tomorrow you might wake up feeling a little bit better, if only because you laughed harder than usual. As the sun sets and the wagon rolls out of town, you're left with a small bottle of miracle and the warm glow of a good story. Maybe the liniment will help your back, or maybe it'll just remind you that everyone, sometimes, needs a little hope and a lot of harmless nonsense. In the pharmacy of life, snake oil is rarely the cure, but it's always a decent bedtime story. Not every miracle drug was a disaster. Aspirin swept in as the reliable favorite, promising to banish headaches, fevers, and the memory of your last opium binge. The box sits confidently near the front of the pharmacy, flanked by bottles of more questionable remedies. There's something soothingly modern about it. A crisp logo, tidy rows of tablets, and no mention of magical thinking or radioactive ingredients. It's a quiet, unassuming revolution in a world that still thinks a little morphine in the baby bottle is just good parenting. You pick up a tin of Bayer aspirin and shake it gently. Inside are little white pills, the kind that actually do what they say on the label. No moonlit rituals, no chanting, just a straightforward solution to the drum solo happening in your skull. The label claims, "Genuine Bayer. Accept no substitutes," which, given the state of the rest of the pharmacy, is excellent advice. You watch the parade of regulars as they arrive, hats tipped, handkerchiefs dabbing at brows. One woman, clearly exhausted from a week of house guests and 4 sleepless children, marches straight to the counter and whispers, "Aspirin, please." The pharmacist obliges, passing over a box as if it's the Holy Grail. She clutches it to her chest like a talisman and, just for a moment, looks ready to take on another afternoon of reality. A young man with a sprained ankle limps in and requests aspirin for pain and minor existential crises. The pharmacist nods with a knowing smile. In a pharmacy where most solutions come with their own subplot, aspirin is refreshingly drama-free. No need for a doctor's note, no tales of miraculous recoveries. Just take 2 and see what happens. If your head still hurts, at least you won't hallucinate about glowing water or develop an urgent need to write poetry. Aspirin's real superpower is its reliability. It doesn't try to cure everything. It doesn't promise to return your hair, your youth, or your sense of adventure. It promises this: your headache will be smaller, your fever will drop, and you can get through the next meeting, church service, or 6 hours of turn-of-the-century children's birthday parties with your dignity mostly intact. That's not to say aspirin doesn't have its critics. There are always whispers about stomach upset or warnings to never take on an empty stomach. But in an age when the most common side effect of your medicine is accidental enlightenment, aspirin's risks are delightfully mundane. You glance at the warning, may cause mild irritation, and feel almost nostalgic for the ordinary. The advertisements are everywhere. Bayer aspirin, the remedy doctors trust. Fast relief without the fuss. There's a photo of a nurse, starched and serene, holding a glass of water and smiling the smile of someone who knows she won't be dealing with laudanum-induced existential crises tonight. Even the company's slogan sounds like a lullaby. Just quiet, efficient confidence in tablet form. Around you, the mood is one of relief. People buy aspirin with the same air of contentment, reserved for hot baths and extra helpings of dessert. No one feels the urge to dance, recite poetry, or consult the nearest Ouija board. Instead, there's a gentle, collective exhale. A moment of calm in a century, defined by wild swings between miracle and mishap. You pay for your tin and pocket it, reassured by the simple promise inside. Sometimes, all you need is less pain and more normal. Bayer aspirin didn't make you glow, tingle, or dream of snakes. It just made life a little more bearable. And for a world bouncing between chemical adventures, that was the real miracle. Pick any bottle off the shelf: pain tonic, cough elixir, digestive bitters, and you're likely holding pure grain alcohol with a dash of something medicinal. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and probably in your medicine cabinet. You wander the pharmacy aisles, taking in the cheerful array of colorful labels. The mood is festive, bordering on tipsy, as if every customer is only one cold away from an impromptu hoedown. There's Old Doctor, Mac's Celebrated Bitters, Mother Evan's Nerve Tonic, and the ever-popular Grandma's Cough Cure with extra spirits. Each promises to heal your aches, soothe your nerves, and possibly add a spring to your step. at least until you try to walk in a straight line. The pharmacist stands ready behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, expertly pouring a syrupy brown liquid into tiny medicine glasses. The scent that wafts over is unmistakable. Not a hint of grape juice or prune extract, but the heady aroma of a distillery on payday. He hands a small glass to a customer and whispers, "For your cough." But you both know this is less about healing and more about taking the edge off. The man knocks it back, coughs approvingly, and leaves the pharmacy humming an old tune he probably hasn't remembered in years. There's a reason every medicine bottle of the era comes with a cork. Alcohol is the active ingredient, the secret weapon, the great equalizer of ailments. Got a toothache? Gargle a little bitters. Tummy upset? Try a warm shot of stomach elixir. Just don't check the proof. Feeling anxious before church? A spoonful of restful sleep drops might not help your spiritual condition, but it will guarantee you don't fidget through the sermon. Children aren't left out either. There's a special shelf for gentle, soothing syrups. Bottles decorated with bunnies and moons, each one packing enough grain alcohol to ensure bedtime happens before sunset. A mother browses the selection, weighing her options. Cherry? Licorice? Mint? Which one helps him sleep? She asks. The pharmacist answers with a wink. All of them, ma'am. All of them. You pause at a display of medicinal wines, each claiming to boost vitality and encourage good digestion. It's the one time in history when bringing a bottle of sherry to a sick friend is considered a prescription, not an intervention. Just one glass before dinner, the directions read, or two if you're feeling poorly or social. The boundary between medicine and merriment has never been blurrier. In the back of the shop, a group of elderly ladies are sampling restorative tonics and reminiscing about the days before Prohibition, when the pharmacy was the last respectable watering hole. The laughter grows louder, the stories taller, and soon nobody remembers exactly what they came in to cure. In the 1900s, the phrase "drink responsibly" hadn't been invented, and over-the-counter meant you could actually see the bartender, pharmacist, measuring your next dose. A young man picks up a bottle of Uncle Ned's invigorating drops and studies the label. The list of ingredients is short. Alcohol, herbs, aromatic flavoring, and the always comforting a touch of medicinal magic. He looks over at you, shrugs, and says, "Well, it can't hurt." History begs to differ, but you let him have his hope. You finally select a bottle, noting that the instructions are vague, take as needed, and refill as often as possible. The real prescription is simple. Whatever ails you, a shot of pharmacy, grade spirits can help, or at least make you care less. You leave the pharmacy as the sun dips low, feeling a little lighter, a little looser, and quite possibly a little less sick. In the age of alcohol in everything, health and happiness are only ever a cork pop away. Sweet dreams. And don't forget to tip your pharmacist. For the customer who wanted science with their snake oil, electric belts, vibrating chairs, and magnetized bracelets, promised to cure weakness and nervousness, which probably meant Monday morning. Step to the far end of the pharmacy, past the sleepy syrups and glowing creams, and you'll find the real marvels of modern medicine, at least according to the latest catalogues. On a display table that crackles with static, there's a jumble of gadgets worthy of a Victorian mad scientist's desk. Belts studded with copper discs, portable batteries in polished wooden cases, vibrating footrests, and a collection of rings and headbands promising magnetic invigoration for the modern man. A sign proclaims, "Relief at the flip of a switch." Underneath it, the pharmacist beams, his hair standing up in defiance of gravity, a side effect, he assures you, of demonstrating the merchandise. He waves you over, inviting you to slip on an electro-galvanic nerve belt, a contraption that looks part corset, part accident. Restores vim, vigor, and youth. He promises, fastening the heavy leather strap around your waist and flicking a small switch. Instantly, a gentle buzz ripples through your midsection. It's not clear whether you're being cured or simply distracted by 1,000 tiny bees. The principle is simple: electricity equals energy. In an age of endless optimism and no regulations, electricity is the ingredient du jour. The electric belt claims to strengthen muscles, calm anxiety, and, if the advertising is to be believed, solve most romantic disappointments. One testimonial reads, "After only 3 treatments, my nervousness vanished, and my mustache grew thicker." The fine print adds, "Results may vary. Batteries sold separately. You spot a row of vibrating chairs, each promising to jostle away congestion and sluggish humors. A dapper gentleman, clearly a regular, reclines in one, eyes closed in bliss, while the device rattles him so thoroughly that loose change falls from his pockets. It's like being massaged by progress itself," he mumbles. The pharmacist turns a dial, and the hum rises to a pitch somewhere between a dentist's drill and a very small, determined woodpecker. Not to be outdone, the magnetized bracelets and electro-invigoration rings are on special display. Magnets help align your bodily energies, the pharmacist explains, stacking them up your arm like you're prepping for an amateur magic show. A nearby customer asks if he'll finally have the energy to get through a double shift at the mill. "Only if you wear 2 at once," the pharmacist assures him. You try to picture the modern equivalent, logging onto an online wellness store and buying a USB-powered optimism booster. But here, it's all mechanical wonder. No one asks for evidence, only results. If your eyebrows twitch or your toes tingle, that's a sign the cure is working. If your hair stands on end, even better. The only real risk is running out of batteries, which, by the way, are conveniently sold at the counter. For the truly adventurous, there's the home electrotherapy kit, a suitcase packed with wires, clamps, and instructions that sound like a steampunk fever dream. Apply to afflicted region. Do not use near barn animals or thunderstorms. It's the closest thing to modern self-care, equal parts hope, science, and a dash of blind faith. As you leave the electric cure section, still tingling and perhaps a little more optimistic, you can't help but marvel at the era's boundless belief in progress. Maybe electricity won't fix your nerves or your Monday morning, but for a few glorious minutes, you feel more energized than you have in years, or at least since your last run-in with a live wire. In the pharmacy of the 1900s, healing wasn't just about medicine. Sometimes, it was about a jolt of faith, a whiff of ozone, and a healthy sense of adventure, batteries not included. Want a radiant glow? Try arsenic. These pleasant little wafers promise to bleach your skin and your life expectancy. You spot the display right between the camphorated tooth powder and the radium night cream, a charming little box of Dr. Rose's complexion wafers. The label is pink, floral, and absolutely determined to convince you that beauty is only a mouthful of poison away. In delicate script, the package promises a clear porcelain complexion and freedom from blemishes, freckles, and inconveniently robust health. The pharmacist presents the box with a knowing smile, as if he's offering a secret to eternal youth rather than a fast track to the local cemetery. Very popular with the ladies, he says, almost conspiratorially. Just one after every meal. The instructions are laughably confident. Take daily for a fairer, more youthful appearance. Results are almost immediate, though mostly in the sudden nausea and inability to eat pie department. You pick up a wafer and examine it. Chalky, sweet-smelling, and no bigger than a nickel. The main ingredient, right there in faded gold letters, is arsenic trioxide. The Victorians, and later the Edwardians, believed that a little poison was a fair price for beauty. Pale skin was the sign of a genteel life, not the sort of complexion you got from working outdoors or living too long. It wasn't just a cosmetic trick. There was a whole philosophy behind it. If your cheeks flushed, you were common. If you had a tan, you were practically a laborer. Only the most refined, delicate, and presumably internally pickled ladies could be truly considered beautiful. And arsenic? It did the job, slowly, graciously, one wafer at a time. Customers, mostly young women with romantic dreams and nervous stomachs, clustered around the display. "Do they really work?" one whispers. The pharmacist nods. "Just look at the testimonials." And indeed, a flyer tacked to the counter is filled with handwritten notes. "My skin is whiter than milk, thank you, Dr. Rose. No more freckles, and I feel positively faint. Mother says I'm the loveliest girl in town, and now I can't sleep." The sales pitch goes well beyond skin deep. The advertisements promise a transformation. Not just fair skin, but a new identity. Someone admired at dances, envied at church, and noticed by every eligible bachelor. There's no warning about numb fingertips, persistent cough, or the subtle hazard of taking your beauty regime straight from an alchemy manual. If you bring this up, the pharmacist waves it off. "All medicines have side effects," he assures you, and anyway, nothing says, "I'm mysterious and tragic," quite like a haunted complexion. A man in a bowler hat sidles up, buys 2 boxes for his sisters, and leaves looking slightly worried. You suspect he'll be back for headache powder before the week's out. A grandmother, eyeing her granddaughter's pale face, nods approvingly. "Reminds me of when I was young, and all the best girls glowed in moonlight and gaslight, and sometimes just light." You turn over the box and find more promises. Removes pimples, roughness, and the burdens of longevity. Directions recommend a steady regimen and absolute secrecy. As if a glowing, chalky face wasn't already a giveaway. You set the wafer down and glance at your reflection in the pharmacy's polished brass scales. Maybe it's the lighting, but your cheeks look a little brighter, your perspective a little darker. As you walk away, you marvel at the lengths people will go for beauty. Sometimes all the way to the poison aisle. In the 1900s, looking good was serious business, and with arsenic wafers, beauty really was only skin deep, right up until the side effects set in. Sleep well, and maybe just stick to cold cream. Before cannabis became a forbidden word, it was just another ingredient in lozenges, syrups, and sleep aids. Grandma's secret recipe? Hashish brownies. You wander toward the sweets counter at the old pharmacy, expecting licorice twists and lemon drops. But right alongside the penny candy jars and peppermint sticks, there's a neat row of cannabis indica lozenges. The packaging is charming, the color is innocent pastel, and the font is so friendly you'd trust it to babysit your children, at least until you realize those children will be asleep for the next 14 hours. A hand-lettered sign above the jars reads, "For restful sleep and cheerful mornings." On the shelf, a recipe book is open to Dr. Potter's Cannabis Confectionery Wonders, as if this is a household staple, right next to yeast and baking powder. The pharmacist points out his latest import, ganja gummies, guaranteed to soothe, uplift, and possibly inspire interpretive dance. He says it like you should already know, like every medicine cabinet in America is stocked with a tin of cannabis bonbons for emergencies, insomnia, or when the in-laws drop by unannounced. Next to the lozenges are bottles of cannabis syrup and hashish cordial. The directions are deliciously vague. 1 spoonful is needed for sleep, nerves, or artistic endeavors. The word overdose isn't in the lexicon yet. The only concern is running out before the next family reunion. You pick up a small tin and realize these were sold as ordinary remedies. Sore muscles? Try a hashish caramel. Trouble falling asleep? 1 gummy bear, and you'll be dreaming about flying carpets until the rooster crows. It's not just medicine. It's a culinary adventure. Grandmothers whisper about special brownies with a wink, and neighborhood potlucks feature desserts that guarantee quiet well-behaved children, and adults who look deeply content, possibly too content to finish a sentence. There are advertisements everywhere. For gentle sleep and sweet dreams. Cannabis indica chocolates. The art shows a woman in a nightgown, smiling serenely as a tiny cartoon moon drifts by her window. You watch as a tired-looking father buys a jar of cannabis lozenges for his wife's nerves. The pharmacist slides them across the counter with a look that says, "I understand." In the corner, an old man stirs cannabis syrup into his tea and sighs blissfully, already halfway to a nap. The label on his jar reads, "For cough, insomnia, and tired spirits." You're pretty sure the only thing that'll be tired after this is the family dog, who keeps sneaking bits of hashish cookie from the kitchen table. There's no sense of scandal or secrecy. Children with night terrors, cannabis to the rescue. A grandmother suffering from nerves. Here, try a fudge square. People trust the pharmacist, and the pharmacist trusts whatever recipe he found in last year's Farmer's Almanac. In this pre-prohibition era, cannabis is just another flavor. One more tool in the great American tradition of soothing whatever needs soothing. Of course, not everyone is immune to the charm. The occasional customer comes in looking confused, muttering about talking wallpaper and a sudden urge to write poetry. The pharmacist just nods. "Maybe cut back to half a lozenge, dear." Before you leave, the pharmacist hands you a sample wrapped in waxed paper. "Sleep tight," he says. "And if you see flying elephants, tell them I say hello." You pocket the treat, marveling at a world where the line between medicine, dessert, and recreational activity was as blurry as the dreams you'll be having tonight. In 1905, the only warning was about running out. Cannabis was comfort, cure, and confection, all in one delicious bite. So tonight, drift off with a smile and maybe double-check what's really in Grandma's secret recipe tin. Syphilis was the great health panic of the day, and the cure was mercury, applied, swallowed, or injected. A night with Venus, a lifetime with mercury poisoning. You approach the pharmacy counter and notice a cabinet labeled, with hopeful flourish, "Venereal remedies." Inside are tiny blue glass bottles, tins of ointment, and a handwritten sign that reads, "Mercury, for swift and certain relief." The swift part is debatable. The certain part is not. But it's not the kind of certainty you'd want in a prescription. The pharmacist meets your gaze with the serene confidence of someone who's about to offer you a solution that's only technically better than the disease itself. The latest in medical science, he assures you, producing a small jar of blue mass pills, a cheerful nickname for pellets of mercury, licorice, and just enough hope to get you through the day. He explains the regimen as if he's reading a recipe for beef stew. Take one pill after breakfast, another at lunch, and apply the ointment directly to the affected area every night. If you begin to drool, tremble, or see visions, he adds, just skip a dose or two. You scan the shelves and see the variety of options. Mercury ointments for the ambitious, mercury rubs for the cautious, mercury vapor baths for those who enjoy their medicine in the form of poisonous steam. The instructions, handwritten and optimistic, suggest application until the gums soften and the mouth fills with saliva, a sign the treatment is working. In other words, if your teeth start falling out, congratulations, you're halfway cured. Syphilis, in the 1900s, was the dark spectre haunting polite society. Nobody wanted to talk about it, but everyone was quietly desperate for a cure. Enter mercury, courtesy of centuries of physicians who believed that if something was toxic to everything else, it must be even more toxic to bacteria. If the burning didn't drive out the infection, maybe it would distract you from your regrets. In the pharmacy, the mood around the mercury cabinet is hushed. A well-dressed man asks for a bottle in a low voice, as if requesting classified secrets or the recipe for Coca-Cola. The pharmacist slides it to him discreetly, then offers a pamphlet on the virtues of mercury. A Guide for Gentlemen. The pamphlet features delicate drawings of smiling men, bright-eyed and suspiciously short on teeth. The advertisements, of course, are wildly optimistic. Mercury, the sure cure, endorsed by leading physicians. There are testimonials from satisfied customers who claim to have regained their health and composure, though the fine print skips over the nervous tics and lifelong need for soft foods. One particularly enthusiastic ad features a couple dancing under a full moon, the woman beaming, the man slightly hunched but, presumably, cured. There's no shortage of cautionary tales. The pharmacist shares a story about a local fellow who overdid it. A little mercury is medicine, a lot is a lifestyle. He quips, half serious. Still, in an era with few real options, people lined up for the chance at a fresh start, or at least a brief period of fewer symptoms. If you asked about side effects, you got a shrug, and the advice to avoid mirrors until you finish your treatment. You leave the pharmacy with your blue pills and an ointment tin, instructions to use sparingly, and the vague hope that, somehow, science will catch up to your predicament before you have to admit anything to your dentist. The old saying was true. A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury. Although the packaging made it sound so much more pleasant. Sleep well tonight. And if you dream of silver, try not to wake up with your teeth on the pillow. In the early 1900s, medicine wasn't always better than the disease. Sometimes, it was just the next adventure. Got the flu? Inhale smoke from a carbolic smoke ball and hope for the best. May relieve symptoms, or just fill your living room with the smell of burned chemicals and disappointment. The pharmacy window boasts a prominent display. Glass domes over mysterious fuzzy orbs, next to handbills promising instant relief from cough, cold, and catarrh. You watch as a clerk packs a carbolic smoke ball into a box lined with pink tissue, as if it's a gift for someone you only sort of like. The label is all exclamation points. Marvelous new invention. Breathe easy. The fine print, if you can find it, is a vague suggestion to discontinue if the wallpaper peels. You approach the counter and get a demonstration. The pharmacist, who has the air of a magician about to saw someone in half, carefully fills the ball with a pinch of carbolic acid crystals and a proprietary blend of menthol, eucalyptus, and bravado. He hands you the device, a contraption resembling a soft sponge attached to a rubber tube. Just breathe in the smoke. Morning and night, he says, and your lungs will thank you. Or at least, they'll be too confused to complain. You squeeze the ball and inhale. The taste is memorable. Your sinuses sing, your eyes water, and suddenly you feel like you've licked a pine forest that's recently survived a chemical fire. Somewhere in your head, your cold considers packing up and moving out, just to avoid a repeat performance. The advertisements are everywhere, featuring robust men, delicate ladies, and children, none of whom are shown coughing, sneezing, or questioning their life choices. Carbolic smoke balls cure influenza, endorsed by leading hypochondriacs. If you look closely, the ads promise not only to end your cough, but also banish all household miasmas. You're not sure what a miasma is, but it sounds bad, and you're willing to smoke out the entire room just in case. Of course, the real legacy of the smoke ball is legal, not medical. At the bottom of every pamphlet is a bold challenge. €100 reward to anyone who catches influenza after using as directed. It sounds great, until you realize the company's definition of as directed is as slippery as the floor after a bottle of cough syrup breaks. Lawsuits follow as hopeful users try to claim their reward only to discover the small print. In case of disputed effectiveness, the manufacturer's opinion is final. The only thing more volatile than the smoke is the warranty. Back in the pharmacy, you watch as an elderly woman purchases 2 smoke balls, one for her cold and one for her suspiciously cranky parrot. He's been sneezing, she explains. The pharmacist, never one to miss a sale, assures her that even birds appreciate a little medicinal smoke, although the parrot might learn some new words if you don't open a window. The smoke ball was meant to bring comfort, but more often it brought confusion, a brief distraction, and a lingering aroma of singed optimism. It was the aromatherapy of its age, except instead of lavender and calm, you got phenol and mild respiratory adventure. The entire pharmacy soon smells like a Victorian hospital, or the inside of a cedar closet that survived a small fire. You leave the shop with a boxed carbolic smoke ball and instructions that suggest using it as often as symptoms persist, or until your neighbors complain. The real effect? Maybe a little cough relief, maybe a good story to tell, and definitely a lesson in the dangers of medical trends. Sleep well and try not to dream of smoke. If you wake up in the middle of the night, just remember, it's not a house fire. It's just your pursuit of health. 1890s style. For that pick-me-up you didn't know you needed, crack open an ammonia inhalant and feel your sinuses burn and your regrets increase. You spot the display near the pharmacy's register, a tidy row of glass vials, each stoppered and labelled with delicate care. Aromatic spirits of ammonia, reviving salts, and the ever-confident instant invigoration. The clerk waves you over, eyes wide, as if about to demonstrate the future of personal wellness. Just a sniff, he promises, and you'll feel better in no time, or at least you'll feel something. The concept is simple. Whenever you feel faint, sluggish, or just plain bored with reality, break a vial and inhale. The ammonia, trapped inside, rushes out to ambush your senses, chasing away cobwebs, drowsiness, and any fond memories of gentle remedies. The pharmacist holds one up and asks, "Rough morning?" It's only 8 a.m., but you get the sense that most customers answer yes, regardless of the hour. You watch as a customer demonstrates, unscrewing the top and taking a cautious whiff. Instantly, their posture straightens, their eyes widen, and for a moment, they look like someone who's just remembered a dozen unfinished chores. The effect is unmistakable, half revival, half chemical slap. It's not so much a gentle wake-up as an existential alarm clock. In the early 1900s, fainting was practically a competitive sport. Corsets were tight, diets were questionable, and fresh air was an endangered species. Ammonia inhalants filled the gap, promising to rouse the weary, startle the listless, and keep society's women from hitting the fainting couch more than 3 times a day. Even gentlemen found themselves in need. Late-night work, early morning hangovers, and the kind of nervous exhaustion that only comes from listening to too many political speeches. You turn a vial in your hand and read the instructions. Break and inhale briskly at the first sign of weakness or ennui. Repeat as necessary. Caution. Not for children, pets, or anyone with fond memories of their sense of smell. It's refreshingly honest. There's even a helpful tip. May also be used to revive friends, neighbors, or suspiciously dramatic relatives. The advertisements are bold and relentless. One poster features a woman swooning in the arms of a concerned suitor, a bottle of ammonia inhalant held heroically aloft. The caption, "Never fear fainting again." Another promises to bring color to the cheeks and purpose to the mind. The fine print, almost too small to read, quietly advises keeping a bucket nearby, just in case your sinuses stage a protest. A group of young ladies gathers by the counter, each buying a vial for emergencies. They giggle and nudge each other, daring one another to take a bigger whiff. One brave soul does, and immediately looks ready to climb a mountain, rearrange her parlor furniture, or run for mayor. Works every time, the pharmacist declares, beaming. It wasn't all fun and games, of course. Some folks found the experience bracing, while others considered it a test of willpower. Grandmothers swore by it for the vapors, and stage actors kept a secret stash backstage, just in case a fainting scene became a little too realistic. If you were prone to daydreaming in church, one whiff was enough to bring you back to earth, possibly with a nosebleed. You buy a vial for yourself, tucking it into your coat pocket for that inevitable moment when the day gets long and the urge to nap becomes overwhelming. You leave the pharmacy, nostrils tingling, eyes watering, and feeling, if nothing else, more awake than you were 5 minutes ago. So tonight, as you settle in for sleep, be grateful for gentler remedies and fewer surprises in your medicine cabinet. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, don't worry, you won't need ammonia to face tomorrow. Just a good night's rest and a world without reviving salts. Why see a doctor when you could buy a bottle of Dr. Kilmer's swamp root? It claimed to cure kidney disease, liver complaints, and female weakness, whatever that was. You approach the pharmacy shelf and are met with a wall of brown glass bottles, each emblazoned with a cheerful green label depicting a mysterious swamp. There's a portrait of Dr. Kilmer himself, moustache immaculate, eyes twinkling with the confidence of a man who absolutely believes a root dug from a bog can heal your innermost woes. Nature's wonderful remedy. The label announces, for all that ails. It's not just medicine, it's a full-blown lifestyle. There are posters in the window, pamphlets by the register, and a sign above the counter urging, "Ask about our swamp root challenge." The pharmacist, as if reading your mind, slides a sample bottle across the counter with reverence. It's good for the kidneys, the liver, the blood, and anything else that's ever felt off, he whispers. You're not sure if he's describing a medicine or a mild religious experience. The directions are simple. 1 generous tablespoon, 3 times a day, with or without food, hope, or a better idea. The taste? Reports vary. Some say earthy. Others say like licking a garden after a hard rain. One regular customer recommends mixing it with lemonade. Another prefers to chase it with something considerably stronger. It doesn't really matter after all. If your kidneys are cleansed and your liver feels sprightly, what's a little bog flavor between friends? As you watch, an anxious mother purchases a bottle for her female complaints. The pharmacist nods knowingly, as if this is a medical term they both understand. Next in line is a man with tired blood and another hoping to fortify his system for the upcoming county fair pie eating contest. No one questions the versatility of the cure. If you have an organ, swamp root promises to cleanse it. The advertisements are everywhere. Builds vigor and purifies the blood. Aids digestion and inspires confidence. If you read the testimonials, you'll find glowing reports from people who were bedridden for years until Dr. Kilmer's magic root put them back on their feet and, sometimes, straight onto a bicycle for the first time since childhood. There's even a letter from someone who claims to have found love, work, and a sense of purpose after a month on swamp root. You suspect the main side effect is optimism. It's the Swiss Army knife of patent medicine, good for what ails you, whether that's gout, lumbago, or a lingering sense of dread. The ingredients are mostly a mystery, but there's no shortage of faith in the formula. Dr. Kilmer himself is painted as equal parts scientist and shaman, forever holding a root aloft and gazing into the distance as if searching for another customer to convert. You unscrew the cap and give it a tentative sniff. The aroma is muddy, herbal, with a hint of something that might be celery, or might be hope. A nearby shopper takes her first sip and immediately makes a face somewhere between enlightenment and regret. It'll clean you out, she assures you, in every possible way. The real magic of swamp root isn't just in its alleged health benefits. It's in the promise that whatever is wrong, be it physical, spiritual, or just the vague fatigue of living in 1905, can be washed away by a little faith and a bottle from the pharmacy shelf. You purchase one too, just in case your soul needs a good scrubbing. As you leave the store, you can't help but feel a little lighter. Maybe it's the placebo effect. Maybe it's hope. Or maybe it's just the prospect of starting tomorrow cleansed, invigorated, and ever so slightly more bog-like. In the end, sometimes the best medicine is a story, a smile, and the belief that healing is only a swamp route away. In the days before warning labels, asthma was treated with tobacco, cigarettes, and powders. Doctors said it would open your airways. Modern science says, let's not do that again. You pause by a pharmacy shelf lined with tidy tins and slender boxes, all boasting miraculous relief for chest tightness, wheezing, and the troublesome spasms of asthma. Each label is bright and reassuring, as if good design could make you forget you're about to light up a cure for not being able to breathe. You spot Dr. Ransom's asthmatic cigarettes, complete with a tiny drawing of a man reclining contentedly, pipe in hand, as his lungs presumably sigh in gratitude. The pharmacist greets you, already unwrapping a sample. A puff or two, and you'll breathe easy, he assures you, holding out a hand-rolled cigarette packed with tobacco, stramonium, and sometimes a sprinkle of belladonna for good measure. He lights it, and a thin wisp of acrid smoke curls up, smelling faintly of burned leaves and questionable intentions. You take a look at the instructions. Inhale deeply at the first sign of discomfort. Repeat as needed, up to 1 package per day. It's advice that sounds less like medicine and more like the sort of dare your older cousin made up at a sleepover. Opens the passages, the pharmacist adds. You're not sure which passages he means, but the word open is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Around you, the clientele is a portrait of hopeful resignation. An elderly man sits by the window, cigarette between his lips, exhaling as if performing a sacred ritual. Been wheezing all week, he confides. But these do the trick, most of the time. His granddaughter, barely 10, is sent up for a new tin of asthma powder. She carries it home, presumably to sprinkle on the family's evening fire like magical dust that promises, if not health, at least distraction. Advertisements plaster the pharmacy walls. Immediate relief. Recommended by doctors and preferred by singers, teachers, and public speakers. If you look closely, there's always a smiling cartoon pair of lungs, looking suspiciously well ventilated. Not a single ad features anyone coughing, gasping, or doubling over in regret. The fine print? There isn't any. Side effects, if mentioned at all, are dismissed as a little tickle in the throat, which, coincidentally, is what you came in for. Back home, the ritual continues. Asthma sufferers gather their powders, load their pipes, or carefully unroll a cigarette, trusting that somewhere between the tobacco and the promise, relief will finally arrive. Parents tuck children into bed, and, if the coughing starts, reach for the medicated smokes instead of the hot water bottle. There's a strange communal faith in the process. If you cough harder, maybe it's working. Modern medicine would intervene with an inhaler and stern lecture. But in 1904, hope comes with a match and a cloud of blue-grey smoke. Nobody asks about long-term effects. Life expectancy is already an iffy proposition. If your lungs feel lighter for a few minutes, that's enough. The pharmacist sells another tin, smiling as if he's peddling miracles, not Marlboros. You leave the pharmacy, tin in hand, and step into the evening air. For a moment, you wonder if it's clearer, if you're breathing easier, or if you're just high on optimism and a mild dose of belladonna. In this world, every remedy comes with a ritual, a story, and a lesson, usually learned the hard way. So, sleep well, and count your blessings, and your breaths. And maybe, just maybe, try not to cure breathing problems with more smoke. Got joint pain? Just slap a belladonna plaster on your skin and hope the hallucinations stay friendly. You find the box right by the liniments, halfway between the camphorated salves and a jar labeled Witch Hazel for aishes and apparitions. The belladonna plasters are attractively packaged, with elegant cursive promising relief for all manner of agony. The box itself looks almost soothing, muted pastels, botanical sketches, and not a single warning label about what happens if you use one plaster too many and start speaking fluent Latin. The pharmacist sets the box on the counter with a little flourish, as if presenting fine chocolate instead of a patch loaded with one of history's most notorious poisons. A favorite among the rheumatic crowd, he says, for backache, stiff neck, or anything that throbs and refuses to leave. The directions are as breezy as the advertisements. Apply to affected area. Remove if excessive dryness, dizziness, or visions of dancing sheep occur. You peel open the wrapper and catch the strong herbal scent, part Italian countryside, part medieval apothecary, part maybe don't drive heavy machinery after this. The plaster itself is sticky and slightly warm to the touch, as if it's already negotiating with your nerves. A nearby customer, clearly a regular, assures you, works wonders. Just don't use two at once, or you'll start writing poetry to the wallpaper. The appeal is obvious. Belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, contains compounds that block pain signals and can produce a warm, tingling numbness. That's the upside. The downside is, well, everything else. Side effects include dry mouth, dilated pupils, confusion, and an urge to debate philosophy with your parlor furniture. But in an era when pain was constant and the alternatives were leeches, burning poultices, or toughing it out, a little light delirium was a small price to pay. The pharmacy boasts shelves full of similar remedies: opium powders, chloroform liniments, and other substances that are now stored under lock and key, but here are stacked in bright tins for anyone with a few coins and a stubborn ache. Belladonna plasters occupy a special place in this parade of hope and hazard. They're recommended for neuralgia, gout, rheumatism, and the torments of modern life. The ads show robust men and serene women, all with perfectly smooth foreheads and a look that says, "I feel nothing." And it's wonderful. You watch as the pharmacist demonstrates, deftly applying a patch to his own wrist and waiting for the telltale flush. The trick, he confides, is to know when enough is enough. If you start composing music or see your Aunt Mildred in the wallpaper, take it off for a spell. The testimonials are mixed but enthusiastic. "Cured my aching back," writes one customer. Also, spent 3 hours speaking in riddles to the cat. Another claims, "No more pain. Just a mild urge to wander the garden at midnight and contemplate existence." You leave the pharmacy with a packet of plasters and a sense of both optimism and mild apprehension. You're eager for relief but prepared for whatever visions may come. At home, you follow the directions and wait. The warmth spreads through your shoulder, the ache fades, and your thoughts become pleasantly fuzzy around the edges. If you find yourself humming to the wallpaper or giving inspirational speeches to your umbrella stand, remember, you're not alone. The history of medicine is a long series of risks, rewards, and very creative coping strategies. So sleep well tonight. And if you dream of fields of belladonna under the moonlight, know that at least, for a little while, the pain is gone. Even if you have to share your dreams with a few dancing sheep, if you felt run down, it was time for a blood tonic, iron, alcohol, and a few secret ingredients. Because nothing says wellness like a touch of industrial solvent, you drift toward the invigorators section of the pharmacy, where the shelves are lined with dark, mysterious bottles, some squat and stout, others tall and elegant, but all promising miracles for those plagued by fatigue, poor color, or the ever-worrisome general malaise. The labels are almost poetic: Dr. Hammond's rejuvenating elixir, ionized wine of pepsin, Mrs. Lacey's vitality drops. Each one is decorated with swirls, banners, and cheerful illustrations of rosy-cheeked families climbing hills or leaping fences. You notice that none of these families look particularly tired or entirely real. A pharmacist stands ready with a measuring glass, pouring a viscous red tonic that glints in the lamplight. Bit of a pick-me-up, this one, he assures you, as if you're about to embark on a pleasant afternoon walk and not a journey through mild tachycardia. He lists the ingredients with pride: iron filings, port wine, a dash of bitters, a hint of quinine, and just enough mystery to keep it interesting. The directions are simple. Take liberally whenever spirits are low or when facing Monday. You watch as a customer, a pale, anxious man in suspenders, downs a generous dose and promptly sits up straighter. His cheeks acquire a faint flush, his eyes brighten, and for a brief moment he looks like he might actually finish the week's chores. Best thing for weak blood, the pharmacist says, or for strong blood that wants a little adventure. There's a whole ritual to it. Housewives gather by the counter and swap recipes for fortifying punch, a blend of iron elixir, lemon, and whatever else is handy. Factory workers sneak a sip before long shifts, while school teachers swear by a spoonful at noon to survive a roomful of energetic children. The tonic is versatile. It can be swallowed, mixed into coffee, or in a pinch, used as a bracing compress for particularly tired wrists. The advertisements are relentless and spectacular. Restore your zest for life. Bring color to your cheeks and purpose to your step. The most persuasive ones feature endorsements from doctors, local athletes, and, puzzlingly, a champion cow named Bessie, who apparently won Best in Show after a week on iron tonic for livestock and ladies. The fine print is nearly impossible to read, but if you squint, you'll find references to mild palpitations, occasional sweating, and the advice to avoid if prone to spontaneous vigor. Still, no one seems deterred. There's faith in the bottle, faith that a dose of iron, a splash of port, and maybe a smidge of benzene is just the ticket for living life to the fullest, or at least for getting out of bed with a flourish. A group of elderly men are gathered around a half-empty bottle, debating whether it's better with or without a chaser of ginger ale. One declares, "It put the colour back in my beard," and the others nod as if he's delivered an undisputed fact. A mother buys a bottle for her listless teenage son, warning him to expect sudden energy and a desire to clean his room. You buy a tonic for yourself, feeling the weight of 100 promises slosh in your bag. As you leave, the pharmacist winks. If you start to feel your heart skip, that's just the elixir reminding you you're alive. At home, you pour yourself a dose and brace for whatever comes next. In the 1900s, wellness meant waking up your blood, even if the rest of your organs weren't quite on board yet. Sleep well, and if you dream of running marathons, blame it on the iron. And maybe the industrial solvent too. That cough drop you're sucking on? In 1905, it probably contained morphine, heroin, or chloroform, now available in cherry flavor. You pause by the pharmacy's candy-colored display, the air sticky sweet with the promise of relief. The jars glimmer under the gaslight, each one filled with jewel-like lozenges, crimson, pink, and a shade of purple that doesn't exist in nature. The label says cherry pectoral, and right underneath, in a font too cheerful to be trusted, it claims, "Soothes cough, comforts nerves, and brightens even the gloomiest day." You try not to think about why the last part sounds more like a threat than a guarantee. The pharmacist sees you eyeing the display and nods with approval. "Bestseller this week," he says, scooping out a sample with tongs. Nothing quiets a cough like a cherry drop with just a whisper of morphine. Or, if you prefer, a dash of chloroform, on sale this month. You take a drop, feel the gloss of sugar, and brace yourself. The flavor is bold. The texture is just shy of sticky glue. And beneath it all is the unmistakable tingle of something a little stronger than menthol. All around you, customers are popping cough drops like they're after-dinner mints. A mother slips one to her fidgety son, for his tickle, while the boy's eyes go wide and dreamy. A weary schoolteacher buys a bag for classroom emergencies. She winks. And sometimes for me, after a long Monday, even the local preacher pockets a tin, quietly mumbling about the dry air in the chapel. In the golden age of the American cough drop, every malady had a matching flavor. The cherry ones, loaded with codeine or heroin, were favorites for coughs that simply refused to quit. Lemon and licorice promised clarity of mind and a quiet throat, although the real clarity arrived when the morphine kicked in and you forgot you ever had lungs. The mint drops, fortified with ether, made you breathe so deeply you'd almost forget your name. The advertisements make it all sound harmless, wholesome, and, above all, delicious. Posters in the window feature rosy-cheeked children and beaming grandmothers, all declaring, "One cherry pectoral, and my cough was gone." The small print adds, "So was the rest of my afternoon." There are claims about soothing sore throats, calming nerves, and restoring your vital forces, which, in 1905, mostly meant you could go about your business in a pleasant, syrupy haze. The pharmacist passes a few drops around for you to try. Suck slowly for best results, he advises, or chew if you're in a hurry. You're surrounded by the low, satisfied hum of a pharmacy at peak effectiveness, customers lingering a little longer, talking a little slower, and not a single cough in the air. The only real danger is dozing off mid-conversation. The more you look, the more you realize these cough drops aren't just about health. They're about comfort, ease, and a quick escape from the relentless noise of daily life. The active ingredients promise a night of sleep, a few hours of quiet, or a ticket to a cherry-flavored dreamland where all your problems dissolve right alongside the lozenge. You buy a tin for yourself, the label promising relief and contentment. As you leave, the pharmacist calls after you, "If your cough gets worse, come back for the black currant. Those have a bit more kick." You nod, tucking the tin into your coat pocket, grateful for modern miracles and slightly concerned about what else might be lurking in the candy jar at home. So, sleep well tonight. And if you wake up craving cherries, just remember, in 1905, relief really was just a cough drop away. And maybe, just maybe, that's why nobody ever seemed to have a sore throat for long. Need more focus? Dr. Brown's brain phosphates were marketed for the overworked and the anxious. Spoiler: the main ingredient was literal phosphoric acid. You spot the display near the pharmacy's study aids and nervous remedies, a collection of glass bottles filled with faintly glowing liquid, each promising to restore your mental powers to their pre-modern, pre-multitasking glory. The label is unmissable. Dr. Brown's brain and nerve phosphates, for modern worry and tired thought. The font is energetic, the colors are bold, and the science is, well, interpretive. The pharmacist approaches, holding a small bottle reverently, as if presenting a holy relic, or perhaps a very confusing salad dressing. For those long days and longer nights, he says, when your thoughts feel scattered and your ambition needs a little electrical charge. He offers you a dose in a tiny glass, crystal clear, with a zingy, sour aroma that brings to mind citrus and the faint memory of high school chemistry class. The instructions are reassuringly vague. 1 teaspoon is needed for mental fatigue, exam anxiety, or melancholy brought on by too many meetings. The real magic, according to Dr. Brown's advertisements, is in the nourishment for tired nerve cells and overtaxed brains. You're told it'll banish mental fog, improve recall, and restore the sharpness of youth. What's not to love? Besides, of course, the fact that you're drinking diluted phosphoric acid and hoping for the best. You take a cautious sip. The flavor is bright, tangy, and just a little electric, like lemonade spiked with ambition and a trace of household cleaner. For a moment, you do feel sharper. Ideas pop and spark. Your mind begins composing lists, plans, and witty comebacks you wish you'd thought of last week. The pharmacist grins, watching for the telltale eyebrow lift that means it's working. Or maybe you're just slightly startled. The testimonials lining the counter are glowing, sometimes literally. "A revelation," declares a sleep-deprived lawyer. "I finished my brief, my taxes, and the neighbor's crossword." Another boasts, "My son went from daydreamer to class valedictorian in one bottle." You notice he's now speaking very quickly and seems to be alphabetizing the pharmacy's magazine rack. There's a sense of hope in every bottle. Overworked clerks take a swig before tallying ledgers. School children sneak a taste before recitation. And tired mothers trust that one spoonful will help them remember what they walked into the pantry for. The pharmacist confides that a few local politicians have become regular customers. "Sharp minds win elections," he says, and nobody reads the fine print. The advertisements paint a picture of modern achievement. A young man in a suit, head aglow with rays of thought, tackling a mountain of paperwork. A housewife, one hand on her hip, the other holding a bottle, smiling with the calm of someone who knows the capital of every state and never loses her keys. For the nerve-weary, the distracted, and the ambitious, the posters declare, "Dr. Brown's brings clarity in every drop." You glance at the side of the bottle, no warnings, no ingredients list, just a hearty endorsement from leading thinkers and educators. If your stomach grumbles, that's probably just your brain working overtime. If your teeth tingle, consider it a sign of renewed mental energy or early enamel loss. You pocket a bottle, just in case you need to finish a novel, win an argument, or remember your cousin's birthday. The pharmacist assures you you'll never be caught daydreaming again. You're not sure if that's a promise or a threat. As you leave, your thoughts feel both sharper and just a little fizzy around the edges. In the 1900s, brain power came in a bottle. Side effects included mild clarity, major optimism, and a newfound respect for the mysteries of phosphate. Sleep well, and if you solve a crossword in your dreams tonight, now you know why. A favorite painkiller of the era, anticamnia, combined coal tar derivatives with codeine. Pain relief, but with a touch of industrial revolution. You spot the signature yellow tin in the pharmacy's painkiller section, squeezed between tins of Bayer aspirin and bottles of whiskey masquerading as cough syrup. Anticamnia. The name alone sounds official, almost scientific, and just mysterious enough to trust with your various aches, pains, and existential crises. The label is emblazoned with the slogan, "Opposed to pain," as if the tablets themselves were ready to march into battle on your behalf. The pharmacist sees you eyeing the display and beams with pride. "Our best seller for everything from headaches to hangovers," he says, shaking a tin. The rattle is oddly comforting, proof there's hope inside, or at least something strong enough to knock your senses into next Tuesday. He explains the active ingredients: codeine for pain, and a coal tar derivative called acetanilide, from the same stuff that lights your street lamp, he says cheerfully, as if that's a ringing endorsement and not a warning from the future. The directions are straightforward. Take one tablet at the first sign of discomfort. Repeat as necessary. If your fingers turn blue, consult a physician or your pharmacist, whichever is closer. The tablets are a soft grey, with the slightly medicinal scent of chalk and asphalt. You pop one in your mouth and chase it with a glass of water, bracing for either blessed relief or a sudden urge to lay down railroad tracks. Anticamnia is pain relief, 1900s style, decisive, ambitious, and only moderately hazardous. The ads around the shop make bold claims: swift relief for all ailments, preferred by doctors and school teachers. There's even a testimonial from a traveling salesman who claims, "Anticamnia kept me on the road and out of the poorhouse." The fine print, of course, is missing. unless you count the growing collection of stories about fingers turning dusky and headaches being replaced with a vague sense of industrial ennui. You look around and see the regulars. A mother buys a tin for her migraines, tucking it into her purse alongside smelling salts and a suspiciously large chocolate bar. A farmer grabs a handful for aches, chills, and whatever comes after mucking stalls. Even the town judge keeps a tin in his pocket for deliberations and the occasional late-night foot cramp. Everyone agrees. The pain goes away, and if you're left with a new set of symptoms, well, that's progress. The pharmacist confides that anticamnia's popularity isn't just about pain relief, it's about modernity. Science at your fingertips, he says, and a little something extra for the nerves. There's a confidence to the product, a faith in chemistry's power to solve problems, one coal tar tablet at a time. No one seems worried that what's in the bottle once powered factories. They're too busy enjoying a rare break from toothaches and tedium. The ritual is the same everywhere. Pop a tablet, wait for the relief, and marvel at the wonders of human invention. Some customers, newly pain-free, linger to chat about how modern medicine is changing everything. Others leave quickly, eager to get back to work before the relief wears off. As you pocket your tin and step outside, you notice the world feels a bit lighter, or maybe you just can't feel your lower back. In the era of anticamnia, pain was optional. Optimism was plentiful, and the Industrial Revolution was just as likely to be in your medicine cabinet as on your city's skyline. Tonight, rest easy knowing that whatever ails you, the solution might be only a coal tar tablet away. Sweet dreams, and may your pain relief be a little less industrial and a lot more restful. Eventually, the government caught on. The Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 swept through, promising to remove at least some of the radium, heroin, and casual arsenic from your daily routine. End of an era, or just the start of new, better regulated disasters. You stand at the pharmacy counter, surveying the landscape. Just yesterday, the shelves overflowed with glowing elixirs, soothing syrups, and tonics that could drop a horse, or at least make it sleep through a thunderstorm. Today, there's a strange new energy in the air, a hum of nervous anticipation, as if everyone's bracing for the moment when medicine stops being the wildest gamble in town. The pharmacist is looking over a pile of government notices, brows knitted, spectacles sliding down his nose. He's been told to clear out anything with misleading labels, undisclosed ingredients, or life-threatening side effects. In other words, half the stock, he mutters to himself, setting aside a crate of laudanum and a few glowing jars of radium water, sighing with the resigned air of a man who's just been told that fun is now measured in milligrams and side effects. The Pure Food and Drug Act, the posters say, is here to protect the American public from adulterated and mislabeled products. Suddenly, cough syrup needs to list its ingredients. Tonic water can't quietly double as rat poison. There are rules for what can go into your blood tonic, and more importantly, what can't. The days of blissful ignorance are drawing to a close. You watch as customers adjust. A mother, used to shopping for soothing syrup with a wink and a nudge, now squints at the new labels. "What's a proprietary blend?" she asks. The pharmacist clears his throat. "Just herbs and less excitement." She buys it anyway, but you sense she's already missing the comfort of morphine-laced cough drops and the gentle, glowing confidence of radium cream. The advertisements change, too. Where once the posters screamed, "Cure all" and "Miracle," they now whisper, "Tested, proven, and regulated by law." The pictures of radiant children and robust grandmothers are swapped for diagrams and footnotes. Even the most flamboyant snake oil salesman now mumbles about government compliance between sales pitches. There's grumbling from the regulars. Old men bemoan the loss of the good stuff, their voices tinged with nostalgia and maybe a little withdrawal. "Back in my day, a tonic was a tonic," one says, shaking his head at a new regulation-compliant bottle. Now it's just water with a bad attitude. The pharmacist offers him aspirin, which is, miraculously, still legal. He accepts, grudgingly, and adds, "As long as it's not just chalk and good intentions. Not everyone is sad, though." There's a young mother with her first child, reading every label like a detective. Relieved she doesn't have to translate Latin to figure out what she's giving her baby. A traveling salesman offers a toast with his newly labeled stomach elixir, cheers to a longer, less dramatic life. For the pharmacy itself, it's a slow transformation. Bottles are relabeled, recipes are reformulated. Some cures fade away, replaced by aspirin, vitamins, and the earliest versions of what you'd recognize as over-the-counter medicine. The wild days of glowing syrups and narcotic cough drops are replaced by a quieter confidence, one measured in dosages, not dreams. You leave the pharmacy, passing a stack of pamphlets titled "What's in Your Medicine?" and can't help but feel a little safer, even if the world's gotten a touch more boring. The era of miracles is over. The era of moderation has begun. You can still soothe your cough, brighten your cheeks, and chase away your nerves, but you'll do it with ingredients you can actually pronounce. Sleep well, knowing your medicine cabinet is no longer a carnival of surprises. The Wild West is over, but hey, at least you know what's in your cherry cough drops. Wander over to the counter, and you'll spot a stack of glossy, wildly illustrated almanacs. These weren't just for tracking the moon, they were catalogues of hope, filled with testimonials like Dr. Quackenbush's liver elixir restored my faith, my hairline, and possibly my marriage. Every claim is bigger than the last, and if you believe them all, you'll be healthy enough to wrestle a bear and handsome enough to never need to. You pick one up. Its cover so brightly colored and crammed with promises that it looks less like a reference manual and more like a fever dream. Inside, every page is bursting with hand-drawn illustrations, smiling children with improbable curls, grandmothers leaping fences, and middle-aged men who have clearly never had a bad day in their lives. There are charts for weather patterns and full moons, but also full-page spreads for Dr. Flimflam's restorative bitters, Professor Marvel's hair tonic, and the only true nerve elixir. Each comes with a testimonial that sounds like it was written during a particularly optimistic lunch break. The writing is a symphony of adjectives: marvelous, miraculous, world-famous. You find yourself sucked in, wondering if you really do need a nerve tonic, or if maybe a few drops of Dr. Swindle's essence of serenity could help you grow an inch or two and finally impress the neighbor's cat. The testimonials are half the fun. Every other page features a beaming customer who, after only 3 bottles of something that smells suspiciously like turpentine, has been cured of the melancholy, the vapors, tired knees, and lack of ambition. There are before and after drawings. On the left, a wilted soul hunched under storm clouds. On the right, the same person, robust and upright, holding a chicken or possibly a diploma. But it's not all snake oil and sunshine. There's a certain art to the way these almanacs sell their wares. Only genuine if purchased from a registered pharmacy. Accept no substitutes. Your life may depend on it. The small print, if you can find it, admits that results may vary, but the spirit of the thing is pure, unfiltered hope. Children read these almanacs for the horoscopes and recipes, while adults flip straight to the testimonials and miracle cures you can make at home, which usually involve a root, a dash of vinegar, and the sort of confidence that can only be achieved by not reading further. The pharmacy stocks them by the hundreds, handing them out with every purchase, so that even a trip for headache powder sends you home with dreams of reinvention. You notice a group of regulars swapping stories by the stove, each claiming that Dr. Wiley's tonic water gave them the energy to plant 3 fields before breakfast. A widow recalls the balm of joy saving her from sorrow and, coincidentally, helping her win 3rd prize in the pie contest. The pharmacist listens, nodding sagely, not bothering to correct anyone. Why spoil a good legend? In the back, you see an elderly man thumbing through a dog-eared edition, tracing the lunar phases with one finger and the list of remedies with another. "I'm trying Professor Bliss's blood syrup next," he announces. "It cured my cousin's gloom and her pet raccoon's arthritis." No one blinks. If anything, they seem a bit jealous. You take your free almanac with your purchase, tucking it under your arm. A passport to a world where hope is bottled. Miracles come with every moon phase. And every setback is just a testimonial waiting to happen. Sleep well tonight and dream big. After all, according to the almanac, tomorrow's a 5-star day for optimism and maybe, just maybe, bear wrestling. Feeling a little tired? Looking peaky? The 1900s solution. Dr. William's pink pills for pale people. The box promises to return rosiness to the cheek and spring to the step, although the main ingredient is just iron salts and a healthy amount of optimism. Swallow a few and see if you feel more energetic or just slightly more gullible. You spot the box on the Pharmacies Vitality and Vigor shelf, nestled among bottles of nerve tonics and tins of blood elixir. The packaging is impossible to miss. Bubblegum pink, bold lettering, and a sketch of a smiling woman with cheeks so rosy she might have just run a marathon or survived a particularly spicy turn of the century lunch. The label promises transformation. From wan to wonderful, from ghostly to glowing, from pale as the moon to robust as a farmhand. The pharmacist greets you, box in hand, a miracle for the chronically weary, he proclaims, as if he's introducing you to a new best friend, rather than a tablet that's 80% iron and 20% Victorian wishful thinking. He shakes the box. There's a soft, hopeful rattle. "For the blood, for the nerves, for the constitution," he explains, handing it over like a sacred talisman. You open the box and examine a tablet. Perfectly round, slightly chalky, and the color of a summer sunset. The directions are clear. Take after meals, and before any strenuous social activity, such as sitting upright, knitting, or worrying about the neighbors. If your complexion doesn't improve, it's implied that you simply weren't trying hard enough. You watch as the regulars buy their weekly boxes. A teenage girl, cheeks pale as winter, clutches her purchase like a lucky charm. "My mother says they'll make me bloom," she says, glancing hopefully at her reflection in a spoon. Nearby, a tired shopkeeper pockets a tin for midday fatigue, and a schoolboy, whose mother insists he's as limp as a boiled noodle, is handed a box with instructions to take two and see if your spelling improves. The advertisements in the pharmacy are positively glowing. Pink pills for pale people. Restores health, happiness, and social standing. Testimonials line the walls. "My daughter no longer faints at choir practice. My complexion is the envy of all the neighbors. No more mysterious languor." There's a special emphasis on transformation. In the world of patent medicines, color wasn't just about health. It was a mark of character, energy, and eligibility for the next town dance. Of course, the real secret was iron salts. The effect? For many, a welcome boost. For others, a sudden rush to the privy. The fine print, if you can find it, delicately warns of digestive surprise, but the public is undeterred. The quest for rosy cheeks outweighs minor inconvenience, or even basic self-preservation. Some say the optimism in every pill is the real magic. Grandmothers hand them out with slices of pound cake, mothers tuck them into lunch pails, and school teachers keep a secret stash for emergencies. Every family has a story about an aunt who took the pink pills and was never the same again, though whether that's praise or a cautionary tale depends on who's telling it. You purchase a box, if only for the experience. The pharmacist wishes you a swift transformation, and as you leave, you pass a mirror and check your reflection. Maybe your cheeks look a bit brighter, or maybe it's just the anticipation. At the end of the day, pink pills for pale people, were a hopeful solution for the world's exhaustion, both real and imagined. Sleep well tonight, and if you dream in shades of rosy pink, you'll know the pills are working, or at least your optimism is. In the 1900s, sometimes a little color was all you needed to feel truly alive. Behind the counter sits a matronly bottle of Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound, guaranteed to solve all female complaints. The recipe is a secret, but let's just say it contains a heroic dose of alcohol and enough herbs to flavor a stew. Take a sip, read the glowing testimonials, and marvel as your problems either vanish or become less interesting. You notice the bottle immediately, sturdy, dark glass, adorned with a portrait of Lydia herself, looking somewhere between stern schoolmarm and the aunt who always knows when you're up to no good. The label is an essay unto itself, for women's ailments, monthly misery, and all matters of delicate disposition. The print promises comfort for the changing seasons of womanhood and a cure for nervousness, weakness, and spells. It's both vague and all-encompassing, a medicine for every mystery the patriarchy has ever failed to understand. The pharmacist slides a bottle across the counter with the utmost gravity. "Nothing like it for the nerves," he says, as if reciting the family creed. "Take as directed, or as needed, whichever comes first." He leans in and confides that the secret formula is mostly a combination of roots, herbs, and a bracing splash of something from the back shelf. "It does wonders," he adds with a knowing look, for both mood and outlook. You get the impression that for some women, the outlook improves after the second dose. Testimonials paper the pharmacy walls, handwritten letters and clippings from ladies' magazines. "After years of suffering, I now rise with the dawn, free from pain and full of purpose," writes one satisfied customer. "My husband is mystified by my good cheer," says another, "and I haven't even told him it's the compound." There's even a glowing review from a woman who claims she ran for city council and won after a month on Pinkham's. You watch as a line forms. Mothers with colicky infants, grandmothers battling the change, and daughters with the kind of ambiguous ailments that only a bottle from Lydia can fix. There is something soothing, almost ceremonial, in the way the medicine is dispensed. A spoonful at a time, with a knowing nod and the unsaid promise that female troubles can, at the very least, be blurred around the edges. Of course, the real magic is in the ritual. A spoonful at bedtime, a dash in tea on difficult days, and suddenly the house is a little quieter, tempers shorter, and problems either solved or snoozed until morning. No one asks too many questions about side effects. Any discomfort is dismissed as part of the process. And, anyway, if you feel a little lighter, who's to complain? The advertisements are masterpieces of euphemism and overpromise. Recommended by women, trusted by generations, purely vegetable, perfectly reliable, which in practice means you're taking a powerful herbal toddy, blessed by Lydia's matronly smile and a marketing team with no shame. One ad declares, "Don't let nature rule you, rule nature." In tiny print, the words contains alcohol almost disappear into the floral border. You purchase a bottle, if only for the legend. The pharmacist wraps it gently, as if handling a family heirloom, and wishes you peaceful evenings and manageable mornings. Outside, you spot a group of women swapping stories about how the compound has kept the peace in their homes, neighborhoods, and even the local school board meeting. At the end of the day, Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound was less about curing and more about coping, helping women find a little comfort, camaraderie, and perhaps the perfect excuse for a quiet moment alone with a glass of medicine. Sleep well tonight, knowing you could handle whatever the week brings. With Lydia's help and a wink at the world's most legendary bottle, step right up to the marble counter and order an ice cream soda. Yes, it's a treat. But in 1903, it's also considered a tonic for digestion and nerves. After all, nothing says medicine like a double scoop of vanilla, a splash of seltzer, and a drizzle of cough syrup. Your prescription. More sprinkles. You take your place at the polished marble soda fountain, a wonder of American optimism and the unshakable belief that dessert can fix just about anything. Behind the counter, the soda jerk, bow-tied, fast-moving, and looking slightly over-caffeinated, wields his ice cream scooper like a surgeon in a medical melodrama. With a flourish, he plops a mountain of ice cream into a tall glass, lets the seltzer fizz, and reaches for the syrup bottle labeled Health Elixir, Cherry. Rough day? He asks, and without waiting for a reply, adds an extra shot of digestive cordial, a sweet, medicinal syrup with a wink of something that might be laudanum, cannabis extract, or just a really aggressive cough medicine. You're not sure, and nobody else seems to be asking. The pharmacy shelves are lined with patent medicines. But here at the fountain, all ailments vanish beneath a thick cloud of foam and sugar. Children giggle as they sip through striped paper straws, noses dusted with whipped cream. Ladies in high collars and men in straw hats nod their approval. Good for what ails you, the pharmacist says from behind the counter, pouring himself a modest glass. Doctors recommend it for the nerves. If your nerves are still frayed after a root beer float, you can always add a little more syrup. Just don't ask too many questions about what's in it. The advertisements are everywhere. Ice cream sodas for stomach, spirits, and social success. Every sip a step toward robust health. Posters show radiant children leaping through fields of wildflowers and genteel ladies clutching soda glasses with the fervor of revivalists at a tent meeting. There's even a print of a distinguished doctor, moustache waxed to perfection, raising a glass in solemn toast to the miracle of soda therapy. Of course, it's all delightfully vague. The list of ingredients in the tonic syrup is a secret, handed down like family silver. The main thing you know is that you'll feel better, or at least happier, after a glass or three. The fountain is crowded after school lets out, a regular stampede for medicinal root beer and restorative sarsaparilla with 2 scoops. If your digestion isn't improved, at least your mood will be. Parents bring their children for a prescribed treat, trusting that a little indulgence is as curative as anything on the apothecary shelf. Dr. Simmons always recommends a chocolate soda for grumpy tummies, says one mother. Another quietly asks for her float with a dash of something stronger, just in case. No judgment here. The line between dessert and remedy is intentionally blurry. Even the elderly are in on the fun. One grandmother sips a frosty concoction and declares, "Much better than my arthritis powder," before launching into a story about how she courted her husband over twin sodas in 1879. The soda jerk listens, nodding, and drops an extra cherry in her glass. "That's on the house, ma'am, for your circulation." The magic of the soda fountain isn't just the taste, it's the ritual, the community, the belief that happiness comes with bubbles and a swirl of syrup. You leave the counter with a lingering sweetness on your tongue, a fizz in your heart, and the sense that maybe, just maybe, medicine really can be delicious. So tonight, as you drift off, remember the days when an ice cream soda was all the therapy you needed. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with sprinkles, seltzer, and just the right amount of tonic for the nerves. It's time for dental hygiene, early 20th century style. Tooth powders line the shelf, most of them laced with abrasives, ammonia, and sometimes a dash of formaldehyde. Brush vigorously for that invigorating sting, and pray your enamel is as tough as your optimism. The minty aftertaste? That's just your teeth surrendering. You spot the cheerful tins stacked on a corner shelf, each one painted with smiling families, rows of shining white teeth, and slogans like "for a brighter, healthier smile" and "polish your pearls daily." The pharmacist dusts off a canister, beaming with the pride of someone who believes every brushing session should feel a little bit like a science experiment, guaranteed to clean, freshen, and fortify. he proclaims, handing you a tin that rattles with possibility and, probably, future dental bills. The instructions are as simple as they are reckless. Wet your brush, dip generously into the powder, and scrub until your worries, and a thin layer of enamel, are gone. You twist the lid, unleashing a plume of mint-scented dust that tingles in your nose and makes your eyes water. The ingredient list reads like the inventory for a well-stocked janitor's closet. Chalk, baking soda, powdered pumice, and, if the label is to be believed, a touch of ammonia for that lasting freshness. Brushing your teeth becomes a full sensory adventure. The powder crackles, fizzes, and grinds, announcing its arrival with all the subtlety of a marching band. Your mouth tingles, your gums sing, and your tongue does its best to avoid direct contact with anything that sounds like it could clean brass railings. By the time you rinse, your teeth feel suspiciously smooth, almost slippery, and you're left wondering whether you've achieved peak cleanliness or just sanded away your last dental defense. Tooth powders in the 1900s aren't just about cleanliness, they're a point of pride. Children show off their tins at school, trading flavors like baseball cards, wintergreen for Monday, peppermint for special occasions, electric lemon for the truly brave. Adults compete for the brightest smile at the church picnic, each armed with their favorite blend, convinced that a clean mouth is a clean conscience. The pharmacist stocks refills in bulk, certain that every household needs at least 3 different flavors and a backup jar for emergencies. Advertisements in every magazine promise breath as fresh as the morning dew and teeth, so white they can be seen across the street. If the advertisements are to be believed, a regular brushing routine will secure you a better marriage, brighter children, and the sort of confidence usually reserved for opera singers and circus strongmen. No one talks about side effects. If your gums bleed, it's considered a sign the powder is working. If your teeth develop tiny cracks, it's chalked up to enthusiastic brushing. Dentists, those few brave souls, quietly suggest using less powder, but their warnings are lost amid a chorus of satisfied customers. Never felt cleaner, says one testimonial, signed simply, Toothless, in Topeka. On the rare occasion someone mentions the formaldehyde, the pharmacist waves it away. Just a little, for antiseptic purposes. Keeps things fresh, he insists, as if adding a dash of embalming fluid is all in a day's dental routine. You nod, thinking you'll stick to mint, even if it makes your teeth buzz. You purchase a tin, promising yourself you'll use it sparingly. At home, the morning ritual becomes a balancing act between fresh breath and enamel preservation, between a dazzling smile and a hidden regret. So as you drift off tonight, grateful for fluoride and gentle toothbrushes, remember, in the early 1900s, a bright smile came at a price. Sleep well, and may your dreams be minty fresh and a little less abrasive. As we bring tonight's little pharmacy tour to a close, take a deep breath, preferably one not laced with ammonia vapor or opium smoke, and let's reflect for a moment. You've survived a full day in the wild, weird, and utterly unregulated world of early 1900s American medicine. You navigated aisles where the cough drops could knock out a mule, and every remedy was either a miracle or a mild chemical accident waiting to happen. You watched as parents spooned heroin syrup into restless children, doctors prescribed invigorating strychnine tonics with a straight face, and pharmacists looked you in the eye while recommending a shot of arsenic for your complexion. Tonight, as you lie back in a world with ingredient lists, expiration dates, and the FDA peeking over everyone's shoulder, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to your ancestors. They survived morphine in their cough syrup, radium in their water, and cocaine in their sodas, and they did it all without ever once Googling, "Is this safe?" Because history, in all its messy, glowing, slightly poisoned glory, is proof that people will try almost anything for a little comfort, a quick fix, or a pinker cheek. Be grateful for the modern comforts. Pain relievers that don't contain literal heroin, bedtime tonics that won't leave you glowing, and the gentle reassurance that if your toothpaste tingles, it's probably just the mint and not a mild hallucinogen. Tonight, let yourself be soothed by the soft, safe hum of electricity, the subtle taste of water without parasites, and the blissful absence of anything labeled swamp root. Sleep easy, knowing you're the lucky descendant of people resilient enough, or just confused enough, to survive the patent medicine era. History may be hazardous, but it's also a long story of hope, curiosity, and the kind of stubborn optimism that put radium in face cream and called it progress. So rest well. You've earned it. And if you wake up thirsty, maybe just stick with water. Good night.